The Innovation Farms Ontario videos and podcasts are sponsored by FCC's Ag Expert. To learn more, visit agexpert.ca.
Hello, my name is Dexter. I was a technician and researcher here at Haggerty this summer. I am through 2 years of electrical engineering at Western University. I was introduced to Haggerty Robotics through the Western Co-op program, where I applied to this position through that program. And when I started this position, I was really excited to see some real life applications of some of the very abstract concepts I'd learned in my classes and my program and see them applied to real life in the field technology. So one of the first things I did this year was setting up the FarmDroid up at Smith Gardens in Keswick. We had developed new weeding blades for to enhance the weeding and make it more efficient. So first thing I did was I helped align those weeding blades to the onion beds and rows in the field. We had some challenges because the muck soil was so soft that a lot of time they would sink in. So we had to make a lot of adjustments to the FarmDroid and its tooling and the tooling bars and everything. But we eventually got it to be very successful. And we were very happy with how it went for the first time using those types of shoes, where we had it weeding 10 acres of onions all summer. And it was very successful with that. We found that it was weeding approximately 60% of the total weeds in the field, making it very easy for someone to follow behind and get the inner row remaining weeds. So we were very happy with that. And then more with the FarmDroid, more on the research side too. I did a lot of weed counts where I would go ahead of the robot, count how many weeds there were, then go through and then count how many it had gotten to get those numbers on the efficiency and what percentage of the weeds it was getting, to see where it could improve, maybe what blind spots it was hitting, where it could get better, maybe identify some of the issues with the shoes for the next versions, but also to give just for data collection and give to the business team for them to use for their materials. Once the onions were too big up in Keswick to use for the FarmDroid anymore, I switched the FarmDroid to seeding mode for use for trials at the Muck Crops Research Station. And then after that, I also helped prep it for the farm show where we seeded and then switched it back to weeding, where it's been weeding there for the last couple of weeks. Another thing I worked on was the Nexus. So I would do a lot of mapping all the lettuce there, and it was a bit of a challenge because the rows there were very uneven. They were not playing with GPS. So it took some time to get those rows dialed in exactly perfect to have no damage towards the crop and have the robot where it needed to be. But eventually we got it there where it was running very, very well, not hitting any lettuce and going right over. I also had to spend a lot of time maintaining the robot. There was a lot of stuff to do with like refueling and also just general maintenance for like connectivity and like the engine and stuff. A lot of stuff I had to do related to that, trying to get it going. Also, I had to do this while communicating with the team over in Montreal, that they were the ones giving me a lot of instruction actually running the robot. I also had to I would determine the effectiveness by doing similar things where I would count the weeds. Well, also I would supervise it to see if it was going up and down, make sure it was getting weeds, make sure it wasn't clipping any lettuce or anything, make sure it wasn't taking out any lettuce altogether. And I was communicating all this with the people in Montreal. So that was a very interesting experience working with people who were so far away and sometimes had a language barrier too. So that was very interesting. So for the second half of the summer, I spent the majority of my time working with the Picketa. So what I spent my time doing is I would go out, I would collect tissue samples from the fields, and then I would bring them back and scan them into the computer using the Picketa. You can see a picture of it being scanned in the top right there. So the main thing I collected the most was onions, because that's what the onion model is very good and we're refining it. But I also did some early work helping create models for carrots and celery. And in the bottom right there, you can see an example of a spreadsheet showing the results of what the Picketa would spit out at the end, showing color coded to those percentages of all the different nutrients, because it would scan it and it would give you numbers and percentages of all the different nutrients that are inside of the leaf tissue. So it was very cool technology to work with and something you can see mass potential for in the future because of how easy to use it was. So it was very cool to be a part of developing that and making it better for the future. And the last was I helped out a bit with the NAIO ORIO while it was up at the Muck Research Station. I did a bit of a field mapping where we had to map fields differently depending on what tooling was on the back, different size cultivators, how many rows. Sometimes it would have to be every other row, sometimes every 3 rows. I also did a fair bit of help troubleshooting it there with the people at the station. I did this both communicating with the people over in France, from them, but also mostly with Grant, communicating with Grant on what needed to do, going through the robot, checking logs, stuff like that. I would also just supervise it, making sure everything was going well, watching for any issues that arose that we could potentially tackle later. So that was very cool to help out with that. That's all I have.